I can say this officially. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurship Forum. Today we have two alums of Salt Lake Community College here to meet with you. I'm going to introduce Jodi Vawdrey, and then this guy who was dressing a lot different than when he was in the class she's going to introduce and talk about. So, with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Jodi Vawdrey. Let's give her a big hand. Thanks, Jodi.
Thank you. How are you guys today? So, like he said, I'm a former student of Salt Lake Community College. I was a non-traditional student. I came back to college and got my degree when my kids got in high school. Didn't quite have the time or energy when my kids were little. So I have been with Northwestern Mutual for 9 years. How many of you have ever heard of Northwestern Mutual? Okay, so we're a financial services firm. We help individuals like yourself as well as business owners create financial strategies to have a secure financial future. Okay, so I've been doing that for 9 years. Prior to that, I was a tax preparer and taught tax classes and prepared taxes for about 12 years. So I have, and then before that, I helped a friend set up and run a couple businesses. So I have 20 plus years in the financial industry, just 9 years with Northwestern Mutual. So when I teach, I like it to be interactive. So feel free to ask questions as we go along. So you've all got a packet here. What I'm going to focus on today is what's the most efficient way to start a business, what you should think about when you have a business, and some pitfalls that maybe you could avoid. And I'm actually going to start at the back. First of all, how many businesses, what percentage of businesses do you think actually succeed and what percent of businesses actually fail? Any thoughts?
5%.
Okay, so at least 8 out of 10 businesses fail, right? So, and there's a lot of reasons why they fail, but most of it is not planning, okay? Because we're all going to get somewhere in our lives, in our jobs, in our businesses, in our careers. We're all going to get somewhere. It's just whether you decide where that somewhere is or you just happen there. Does that make sense? So good planning is the key. How many businesses would you say start out as joint ventures or partnerships where a couple people get together, have some complementary skills or some ideas and want to work together and start a business? Yeah, quite a few. So that's one way people start businesses. The other reason people start businesses is they have a job. Maybe they're a mechanic and they're a really good mechanic and they just get sick of working for their boss. And they say, I can do this. I can go out and start my own business, right? So the question is, when you create that business, are you creating a business, an asset, or are you just creating a new job? Does that make sense? Right? Because if you're a mechanic, I'm not picking on mechanics, this could be anything, but if you're a mechanic and you do a really good job as a mechanic, so you quit your job and start your own business, well, now you still have your job as a mechanic, but what other jobs do you have? Okay? You have business management, you have marketing, you have finance, you have HR, right? You have to hire people, right? And so what's the odds that that mechanic has all those skills?
It's not going to apply to your job.
Yeah.
It's not going to apply to your company. Or, oh my gosh, never mind.
So let's say you had the resources to, like, let's just say you don't have the capital, but you have the resources to start a business. Is that a good reason to start one or no?
Yeah, there's not a bad reason to start a business. I don't think there's a bad reason to start a business. There's just bad ways to do it. There's just pitfalls that you can get into, okay? So one thing I would say, why do people get into business?
Make money.
To make money, to earn a living, okay?
Be their own boss.
Be their own boss. And then eventually, what do they want to do? Retire. They eventually want to get out of the business, for most people, okay? Some people like myself, when I sit down and ask people, what does retirement look like for you, at what age? For me personally, retirement for me is slowing down, maybe just working 2 days a week. But still, that's exiting out of the business in some fashion, right? Going from full-time to 2 days a week. But most people want to get out of business at some point. They want to retire, okay? So I would say the first thing you need to think about when you get into business, and it may sound crazy, but the first thing you need to think about is, how do you want to get out of business? What do you ultimately want from that business? Would you agree with me? Does that sound crazy? Who has some thoughts on that? Is that a good idea?
Probably, so if you gotta figure out how you wanna retire, so then you have to know what you have to do to make that much money, so.
Okay, so you think it's a good idea because you eventually want to retire and you need to know how much money it's going to take to fund your retirement, so you need to know how much money to make and save, right? What are some other good reasons why you might want to think about how you're going to get out of the business before you even start?
Well, but it lets you know what your path is going to be, because depending on how you want to get out of it depends on if that's even something you want to get into.
Right, I mean, it could have a huge impact on how you grow the business. What path that business is going to take, right? Am I going to stay small and just have me and 2 or 3 employees? Am I going to grow and expand and have 7 locations? Does that make sense? So if you know at the end, and we don't know what's going to happen in 30 or 40 years, but if you think about it and have an idea, if you could paint your own picture, what would I want the end to look like? Then you can design it to get there. Does that make sense? And obviously you have to update it as things change, right? Because life events come at us and maybe change our perspective or change our goals, right? Do you know that's how a lot of books are written? That's how movies are made? They start with the end in mind, and then they fill in all the gaps. Okay, so if I'm going to get out of the business at some point, turn to the very last page. Okay, this is absolutely critical if you go into a partnership. Okay, but it's also important for you to think about as an individual. Okay, so ideally, most people want to work the business, make a good living, enjoy life, and then retire, right? But what are some other ways you might exit the business? Pardon me? Sell it, okay? And you might sell it because you're ready to retire, right? What are some other reasons you might sell it?
Move on to a new adventure.
Okay, so life has changed, you have new interests, you want to go on to a new adventure. So that's an early exit, right? So an early exit might be for another opportunity.
You don't have to enough like finance to run your business, get it going. So you want to sell your business to other people.
Okay, so that may be something that happens if you don't plan properly, right? You can't really run the business, it's not making money, but someone else could probably take it and make it, right? But if we were planning our own picture, we would hope that wouldn't happen. But sometimes things come up, right? What are some other things that might cause you to have to get out of the business? If you're looking at your cheat sheet here. Illness, right? So if you can't work in your business, what happens? Okay, so you've got to have strategic plans for that. If you and especially with a partnership, if you get sick, right? So if you're a business owner and you have a partner and you're 50-50 partners, you're both working in the business, he's doing sales and marketing and she's doing business administration, hiring, finance, all that kind of stuff. If one of these people gets sick and can't work, what happens to the business? Okay, so you've got a person who's no longer contributing to the business, right? Okay, so if you've been in business for 10 years, your family are really good friends, and that person, let's say that person injures their back, severely injures their back, right? They can walk and talk and move, but they're in a lot of pain, they're on a lot of pain meds, and they're going to physical therapy every day for 3 hours. Okay, so, and this goes on for 8 months. How does that affect the business? How does that affect the business?
It can have a negative impact if the people that are there to fill in for you don't know what the plan is if that event happens.
Okay, so the first thing you said is if the people that are filling in for you, that's assuming you've done some planning and have someone that can fill in for you, right? But a lot of business owners don't think about that, okay? So if I'm the sales and marketing person and I'm the one with a bad back and I can't be out there selling, what's going to happen to income?
It goes away.
Yeah, it goes away or it goes down. If I've had some planning and I've thought about having a replacement for me, someone who knows a little bit, how effective are they going to be at my job? Really?
They're not going to do it like you.
They're not going to be as good as me. I'm the business owner, right? It's my baby. Okay? So there's going to be an impact to the business. And if there's no system in place, we've been in business for 10 years, I'm not contributing to the business, but I still have a house payment, car payment, mouths to feed. Do I still want income out of the business as a business owner? Yeah, so now I'm drawing money out, but I'm not contributing anything. Does that make sense? So you need to be thinking about how do we deal with that? And there are systems and plans to deal with that. Well, let's say that this goes on for 2 years. At some point, my business partner is going to say, you know what? We can't be partners anymore, right? I mean, I love you dearly, but this is a business. I need to make money. And so they need to buy you out. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's one reason you might be forced to exit early if one of your partners passes away. Okay, same situation. I'm married. My partner's married. If I pass away, what happens to my share of the business? Goes to my spouse, right? They inherit it. Okay, I'm a financial advisor. My spouse is a construction worker. He's now in partners with my partner, right? What's the likelihood he's going to be able to contribute to that business?
Not that great.
Yeah, I mean, they're completely different fields, right? So you need to have a plan in place that says, okay, if I pass away, my husband inherits the business, that's the law. Well, my partner wants to be able to buy out my share of the business. They want to give money to my husband and buy what he inherited. Make sense? So now they have control of the business and they can either run it themselves or bring on another partner. Make sense? So there's 2 parts to that. There is what's called the buy-sell agreement. Has anybody ever heard of a buy-sell agreement? Okay, so it's just an agreement that you get into when you have a partner that says, okay, if anything ever happens, this is kind of the playbook. This is kind of the rules we're going to follow. If one of us pass away, this is what we want to have happen. If one of us becomes sick, this is what we want to have happen. If, for example, in my situation, I invested in a company a year and a half ago, completely different company. We make axles for Jeeps for rock climbing, okay? And last year, I had a lot of personal issues that happened. My mom passed away. My mother-in-law fell and broke her back, had to be in rehab, move in with us. So I didn't have any time or energy or anything to devote to that business. And so I went to my partners and said, you know what, I need to get out. I don't have the time, plus, frankly, I probably need the money to take care of my mother-in-law. So those are some reasons that you might not think about. You know, family obligations, a divorce, different things like that might come up in life. So you need to have an agreement that says, how do we get out of this if we need to? Make sense? Okay, so if Melissa's my partner and we have this agreement that says Melissa wants to buy my share of the business if I pass away, where does she get the money to buy my share of the business? Okay, so the simplest, easiest way is what we call funding that buy-sell agreement. Having the funding mechanisms in place, and life insurance is the easiest way to do that, right? Because then there's insurance in place, she gets an amount of money to pay my husband to buy out the business. It's cheap, it's easy, okay? If I have to depend on going out and getting a loan, what if the business is not in a position that I could guarantee a loan? What if we're still in the growth phase? Okay, so insurance is a good way to fund a buy-sell agreement. You also need to have emergency savings, okay? Because insurance is not going to protect against a divorce, is it? I mean, there's no insurance that says if I get divorced, I'll pay out. Maybe we ought to invent that. Okay, that was my idea, you guys. No one heard that, right?
Can you get a patent on that?
I'm going to try. The only problem is you try to sell it when they're all starry-eyed and in love, right? Question?
So, if we were partners in business, I could get a life insurance policy on you,
Uh-huh.
and I would be the beneficiary.
Uh-huh.
And then if something happened to you, I could cash in the life insurance policy and buy out your husband.
Uh-huh.
What if your husband doesn't want me to buy him out and he wants to keep his share? Then what happens to that life insurance policy?
Okay, you are the beneficiary, period, end of story. But what you want to do is you want to write up the agreement that he has to. Because you're the business owner, you want to be in control. You don't want to just let anybody help you run the business, right? But you could put in a clause that says you have the option to let him stay in the business if you wanted to, but then you're the one that's making the decisions. He doesn't get control just because of circumstances.
So basically he wouldn't be contributing, but he still would be receiving a benefit from the company with income.
If you agreed to let him stay on,
Yeah.
well, as a good business manager, you wouldn't agree to let him stay on unless he was contributing something, right?
Okay, good point.
I'm telling.
Question, Megan? Okay.
So what kind of on the line she's asking is when you start a business, you want to make bylaws, and in your bylaws and your corporate structure is where you would put that agreement.
Yeah, so when you start a business, you set up rules, bylaws, corporate structure, and you have, and they can be the same document or they can be a different document. You have a document that addresses these kind of issues. It's called a buy-sell. And then you have an operating agreement that says who does what. If we have conflicts, how do we resolve the conflicts? When we earn money, how do we distribute the money? Okay, so you need to think about that all ahead of time. Question, Melissa.
And how do you know when you're first starting the company if you're gonna take, if each partner's gonna take policies out on each other? How do you know what to take out, or do you take it out based on I don't.
You talk to a financial advisor to figure out what kind of insurance you can qualify for and what you need.
And then you just update it as because
Yep.
business grows?
Yep. And that's normal financial planning, is you sit down, you make a plan, you figure out what your needs are, you figure out how to address those needs, and then you have to update that plan every year as your business grows. Question?
Say it's like a family-run business, and one of the people dies, but eventually they want their kids to be able to inherit some of it. So, would you just sell it to your partner and then like put something in there saying that later they have to, or do you just trust them to do it?
No, the question is if it's a family-run business and they eventually want the kids to do that, that's something you talk about right in the beginning, right? So you put agreements in there that says if my son wants to do this, then he's allowed to do that. And your partner either agrees and you do business, or you don't agree and you do business. The more, when you go into a partnership, the more negatively you can look at it to begin with, the more problems you can prevent. You just think of anything in the whole world that might be an issue. Think of any conflict you've ever had with anybody in your whole life, brothers, sisters, parents, school partners, any conflict you've ever had, and say, could that happen in my business, and how would we resolve it? Does that make sense? Because again, the more prepared you are, the better the business is. Does that make sense? Okay. So every business has a path, just like individuals. I'm kind of going out of order here. I need to rearrange this packet next time I do it. But you have a business life cycle. Okay? So a business life cycle is your startup, growth, maturity, and transfer. And that transfer can be selling it to a business partner, it can be transferring it to your kids, whatever. Okay? But these are the different phases you'll go through as a business owner and some things to think about. Okay? So when you're a startup, you need to protect against business liability, right? So in this axle company I'm in, we start manufacturing these axles and start selling them. What liability could there be? Yeah, if they break and someone gets hurt, we could get in real trouble, right? So you need to protect against that. Okay? What about if, let's say you're a computer designer, you do websites or something like that, and you landed a job with GE, okay? And so you're spending all your time on GE, you don't have any other clients. What liability or what risk could you have there? Yeah. Yeah, so loss of customers could be a risk, right? What if you have a building and an office building or a shop or something like that, and some random person crashes his truck through your building and he doesn't have insurance? What liability do you face there? Right now your building's ruined, you don't have any place to do production. What if you're a restaurant and that happens, and so it takes 6 months to rebuild it, and you've just barely hired the best chef in the world, and now he has nowhere to work for 6 months? What happens? You lose him, right? He goes to another job. So there's lots of liabilities that you need to think about. And when you start getting employees, you look at having group health insurance, group life, group disability, things like that. But as a business owner, let me go back to this first page. As a business owner, your business is one of your assets, right? It's probably your biggest asset, okay? But as a business owner, you're still a person, right? So as a person, you have all these needs as well. So as an individual, you're going to want to address retirement income, funding your children's education, protecting your assets, right? What happens if you're an individual and you can't work? You know, how do you continue to pay your house and things like that? You all have liabilities like car insurance, right? If your house burns down, you want insurance on that. But as a business owner, one of the cool things is you have a lot more tools at your disposal to solve these needs. Does that make sense? How many of you have taken any finance classes? Okay, so as an individual, how can I save for retirement? Okay, if you're an employee, you have access to a 401k, right? And an IRA. How much can you put into an IRA? $5,500. Okay, so that's not a ton when you want a $60,000 or $70,000 or $80,000 paycheck in retirement, right? As a business owner, you can create your own 401k. Did you know that? How much can you contribute to a 401k? So 25% of your income up to $17,500. Okay, so as an employee, you can contribute $17,000. But if you're a business owner and it's your 401k, can you also add profit sharing and stuff like that into it? So as a business owner and an employee of your own business, you can get up to $50,000 into a 401k instead of $5,500 in a little IRA. So you have a lot more tools and options as a business owner. Does that make sense? Question?
Can you manage where you put the money?
Yes.
You have a lot of flexibility?
Yes. Absolutely. You can manage where you put that money because you set up the 401k. You get to decide, I mean, there are some IRS rules, but for the most part, you get to decide how the plan's managed, how the 401k assets are invested, all of that.
IRS rules change.
Uh-huh.
Does 401k stay consistent, or are there changes that you have to be aware of?
There are changes that you have to be aware of. So the question was that the IRS changes rules and do the 401k stay the same? And the IRS changes rules all the time. One of the things with the 401k is they do amendments. The IRS passes rules and stuff, and so you have to amend your 401k plan to keep up with the IRS changes about every 5 to 6 years. Yeah. So as a business owner, you have a lot more options, but there are a lot more things you need to be aware of as well. Okay?
So you said every 6 years to change the amendments for those?
Yeah. As a business owner, you have to update your 401k plan.
Or whenever they decide.
Or whenever they decide. It's generally every 5 to 6 years. Okay. So, but the reality is, you should not go into business until you have some foundation as an individual. Does that make sense? I'm going to turn the time over to Zach. Zach, why don't you come up? Oh, you'll probably need my little
Can I just
thing
use
here.
mic?
Oh, okay.
Great.
So Zach is also a rep at Northwestern Mutual, former current Salt Lake Community College student.
That's right.
So he's going to talk to you about some personal planning and then also share with you some information about our internship.
Okay, well, hey, first of all, I want to say thank you, Rick, for letting me in your class, and Jodi inviting me as well. Real quick, we're going to talk a little bit about personal planning, about what you have to have established before owning a business. Who agrees in here that you should have some personal planning done before you own a business? Raise your hand. Okay, so that's a fairly good amount. I don't think I saw everybody's hand, but that's good, right? So you need personal planning. Well, what is personal planning? What's a good personal plan? Is a 401k and maybe some life insurance good personal planning? Raise your hand if you agree. That's right, it is a start. Well, personal planning is relative to who you're planning for, right? And so, for instance, if you're planning for, let's say, Melissa here, it could be 401k and life insurance would be great. But say if I'm planning for Jeff, 401k might be good, but there's better options, right? And so personal planning is all developed to who you're planning for. So here at Northwestern Mutual, we deal with 3 areas of personal financial planning. And if you'll go to page 3, you'll see that little pyramid. I'm not going to say exactly word for word what's on there, but this is how I go to approach it. Okay, so number 1, you'll see that pyramid. First of all, the pyramid, what it represents, and not pyramid scheme, just a pyramid, a stable structure. It's one of the most stable structures out there. Okay, so when you look at that, you'll see 3 areas. You'll see risk management, wealth accumulation, and wealth preservation and distribution. So number 1, risk management, it deals with the cost of dying too soon, becoming sick, or becoming disabled. Those are very important. We want to make sure that they're taken care of before you just go and own a business. Because say, for instance, you, go ahead. Am I talking really fast? I'm sorry, I'm nervous, and so I tried imagining all you in your underwear, but that's really awkward, so I decided not to. Okay, so, yes.
Relax.
Okay, thanks. So, number 1, risk management. So let's say Melissa owns a flower shop. Okay, so she loves to ski though. If every day that she's off, she goes skiing. One day she goes skiing and she breaks her leg. Well, owning that flower shop, it's going to be hard to make her deliveries with a broken leg. So she's going to have to sit down for 6 months. Well, if she takes a seat for 6 months and she doesn't have any disability coverage, what happens to her business? That's right. And all your personal planning with it, because that's your only source of income, correct? So when we're looking at personal planning, owning a business from a business standpoint, personal planning is the key foundation before you even start the business. So risk management deals with the cost of dying too soon, becoming sick, or becoming disabled. For instance, the ski accident. We're not hoping any of that on you, by the way, Melissa. So.
We're good.
Ah, okay, good. Okay, number 2, the second part of the process is wealth accumulation. It's saving up those assets for retirement. Saving up your assets to buy a first, second home, maybe even a second business, funding your kids' educations, whatever that might be, we're saving up for a short or long period of time. Does that make sense? Okay. And then the third piece is the wealth preservation and distribution. Basically getting those assets back to you in the best tax-efficient means. Not tax evasion, but thinking of the best tax-efficient models we can put our money into in the very beginning, in the risk management phase. So when I look at this and when I sit down with somebody, I as an intern do everything that Jodi does as well. And so that's the great thing about our internship is, I work as just basically a full-time representative under an intern's clothing. So if that makes sense. So what we do is we sit down with somebody, and most of the time they've already got stuff taken care of in, say, the risk management piece. They got some estate planning done. They have some wealth accumulation, but we want to make sure that's enough. And so when I look at that pyramid, I look at it with little cracks and slits and holes and little broken off chunk right here, and sometimes it's not complete. And so what we look to do is we look to make sure that pyramid is taken care of, that you have your risk management in place, that you have proper disability coverage. You're maxing out your disability coverage, your life insurance, that you got your health insurance taken care of. You have emergency savings, that you're saving enough to where you can get to retirement, to where you can hit the exact goal that you want. So that's what we do here. We don't come in and take everything over and say, okay, get rid of this. We want to make sure that you get to retirement on time. We want to make sure that you can take care of your family. And so that's what that personal planning piece is we make sure that all your needs are taken care of, and we can make sure that you get to where you want to be. Does that all make sense? Is there any questions on that?
Can I share a couple more examples on the personal planning? So under risk management, how often do you think someone starts a business and doesn't have health insurance? Okay.
So what happened?
That's an absolute no-no.
So if you just say you started off the business on your own and then you don't have no health insurance, it's just you, and then you still working for somebody else and you got insurance through them, is that reasonable in that?
Yeah, as long as you have health insurance, that's good. Okay? But far too many business owners will start their business and not have health insurance. Why? Because they don't think they can afford it. Okay? But what happens if you don't have health insurance as a business owner? Yeah, you can't afford not to have it because if you do have something that happens, you break your leg or you get bronchitis or something like that, you need to go to the doctor and you need to be able to get the treatment you need so you can get well, because it not only affects you and your family and your income, but now you've got 5 employees that are depending on you. Does that make sense? And so it's a really simple thing, but a lot of people don't even consider it. So you can get an individual policy, or if you're still working a job that offers it, you can have insurance there. And when you leave, when you get so busy that you can't be an employee anymore, you can take that insurance with you. So that's huge. What about emergency savings? How much emergency savings as a person do you need? Okay, the general rule is 3 to 6 months. As a business owner, how much do you need? Probably a year to 3 years, right? Because what happens in business? Yeah, you have this fluctuation, and you need to have the cash flow to keep the business going and pay the expenses when you don't have the income in, right? How long does it take most business owners to really start turning a profit and be able to draw income off it? Okay, 1 to 3 to 5 years. It depends on the business. So you need to be prepared for that. So you need emergency savings. You need to get your credit scores in line, right? Are you going to need credit? Okay, so you need to get your credit scores in line. You need to have your life insurance in place. You need to have your health insurance in place, okay? And when you're talking wealth accumulation, that's going to be your savings, right? So think about this. When we sit down with someone as an individual and we create a strategy for you, we base it on your goals, okay? So if you sat down with me and you said, I have a goal of starting this business in 3 years, and I want to start saving up for that, am I going to have you put your money in an IRA? No, because it's not going to be accessible for that, right? And so when I'm helping someone on an individual basis, again, thinking with the end in mind, what do I want that, what is the job of that money? How do I want to get that money out? What's the best vehicle to put that in? Same with your business. When you're thinking the end in mind, selling or getting out of an S corporation is different than selling or getting out of a partnership. It's different than selling or getting out of a sole proprietor, different than a C corp, right? So how you want to get out of it is going to affect how you set it up. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to take just a quick break. I want Zach to tell you a little bit about our internship program. Northwestern Mutual has an internship program. And I really get no benefit from introducing it to you. The reason I want to introduce it to you is because when I was sitting in those tables trying to decide what I wanted to do, I knew I wanted to do something in the finance field and wasn't sure what. And someone introduced the internship, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do to figure out what you want to do, right? So it was a really great opportunity for me, and so I just want to make you guys aware of it in case you're interested. Go ahead, Zach.
All right, I'm going to slow down a little bit. Talking pretty fast. So, internships. Has anybody interned in here before? Raise your hand if you have. 1, 2, 3. Okay, a couple of you guys. How was your experience? Was it good? Fairly good. What was your daily duties?
$100,000 policy on a 20-year-old cost
Yeah.
$5 a
I was
month,
at a clinic for a little while. I was basically doing reception work.
Okay, reception work. So you kind of got a feel for the, was it dental or was it?
No, it was supposed to be an externship for medical coding and billing, but they
Okay.
didn't really want me to fill it out, so they exposed me to the office.
Okay, so they didn't quite give you the full exposure to what you were really looking into. So, and that's the problem with a lot of internships. If you look at, there's a broad range of internships. There's so many out there. Now, when I was looking for an internship, I was looking for something where I could kind of make myself. I could make my own money, where I had independence, I had income, and I had the impact, that I was doing the same thing that the full-time guys were doing. So when I looked at internship, I got introduced to Northwestern Mutual, and the guy who had introduced me to Northwestern Mutual, he had been in the same business that I'm in today, and he'd been doing it for 20 years, #1 salesman in LA. He did great. And he said if I could have done it all over again, I'd have worked with Northwestern Mutual. That was all it took for me. I went and basically interviewed a couple times, decided internship was the best program. Now, this internship, I'll tell you what, is I don't have to grab Jodi coffee every day, even though I'd love to do that for her, as I don't have to do that. I get to do the same thing that she's doing. I get to help people plan for their personal financial plans, for their business planning, and that's what makes it amazing. Now, Northwestern Mutual's internship program, it's been around for a very long time. I don't know exactly when it was, but we actually have been top 10 in the nation for the past 17 years now. So I'm proud to say that because a top 10 internship on your resume is amazing. Now, I'm looking to stay with Northwestern Mutual for the rest of my life, so I'm not moving, but how many would like a top 10 internship on your resume? Somebody say good things about you and say, you know what, I like this guy, he's great. He interned with us, we wish he would stick around longer. Or this gal, there's a couple of you. So, now, an internship here where you get the experience, you get top 10 experience, you get the resume building experience, and you're making your own money and you're helping people, is a great opportunity, right? Who would agree with that? Make your own money, get independence, impact. Okay. So with this internship, I'm proud to say that I finished #1 in Utah, and there are amazing benefits being on top. I mean, I'm not #1 in the nation yet, number 48, pretty close. I'm getting flown back to Milwaukee tomorrow. I get to go back for a special retreat. The top 100 interns in the nation get to go back to Milwaukee, and they pay for it, all expenses paid. We get to go back for special training and a special session where we congratulate top 100 interns. Last time I checked, if you did good at your internship, was it medical billing internship, correct? If you did good, they'd probably say, oh, great, get back to work, right? Am I right? So that's the beauty about building your resume with a top 10 internship. Northwestern Mutual, we treat people right, and I've seen interns come and go. It's not for everybody. It's a hard business, but it is worth it. That's why I've chosen Northwestern Mutual.
So if you have no interest in being a financial advisor, would this be a good internship for you? Okay, what you're going to learn is how to help individuals like yourself and business owners. So what you learn will apply if you're going to be a housewife, house husband, if you're going to be an employee or have your own business. So the reality is this internship could benefit just about anyone. Is it the right fit? No. We go through a pretty extensive process to make sure it's going to be a good fit for you and make sure it's going to work for you. But the reality is it can benefit anybody. We had the #1 intern in the nation a couple years ago was in my office, and he was getting his degree in music composition. Why do you think he decided to do the internship?
To build experience.
Because it was the best job he could find, that he set his own schedule, make more money than he could do doing anything else, and what he learned, he would use the rest of his life. That's why he decided to do it. So if you're interested in checking out more about it, I'm going to send around a sign-up sheet. Just put your name and contact information if you just want to find out more about it. The other thing that we do before you take the time over is when I do these kind of presentations at Salt Lake Community College, I offer to, Zach and I will sit down with you and answer any questions you have personally, financially, about businesses, things like that. So I'm going to pass around this second sheet. If you're interested in talking with Zach or myself or someone from my team on a personal basis, we'll answer whatever questions you have. And there's no cost to do that. We just offer that.
Let's give them, first of all, let's give them a great hand for that presentation. Now comes the test. Mike? Mike A. Okay? They talked about planning. What are the first 5 steps in business?
Well, first of all, figure out what your end goal is.
How about this? Plan times 5. You can never do enough. And review it at least annually. At least annually. But if you're smart, you're going to do it at least monthly. And plan based on your annual goal. You're going to plan each month at least. You could do it daily depending on your kind of business. But planning is very important. So keep that in mind as you plan your future. The other thing is, and Zach, does Zach clean up nice? Huh? Is that great? Huh?
Great. I shaved last night, so it's good.
Zach's a good man. He sat where Tamisa is sitting right now for several weeks. Right along here, didn't you, on the front row?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Like that.
But, and he's planning his future. Now, whether or not, and he made a statement that he's going to stay with Northwest Mutual forever, that may change. But he's headed in a good direction. And that's critical to you. And change takes place in your lives all the time. But you need to be aware of all of these things. And Northwest Mutual is good. There are others who are good. And I'm not trying to sell Northwest insurance policies. Don't misunderstand me, but that's their job. That's not mine. My job is to tell you that whether you use Northwest Mutual or somebody else, you've got to look at that. And because it is absolutely critical. As you know, when you get to be my age, let's compare. I was told that a $100,000 policy for you, I can write this thing on here, okay? $100,000 of life insurance could cost you $5 to $10 a month. So let's say it's $10. Because that's easier to figure. $10 a month. Let's say you pay that for 2 years. What have you got? $240. Okay? Make it $240. and you die at the end of 2 years. What's your return on $240?
Good
Now,
point.
you're not going to be around to enjoy it. But
Good point.
number 1 point. But number 2 point is that whoever is with you is going to benefit greatly because of the liabilities and things that they may have otherwise that you and your planning realized, but you prepared for. And that's going to make whoever you leave behind in a lot better shape than if you didn't have it. Now, I'm using that because it's an easy number, but something to keep in mind as you set up your planning and goals. 'Cause now, as I recall, most hands went up when they said they were wanted to go into their own business. Is that still the case? Are we scaring you? We're not scaring you at all. But, and that's not the purpose, but keep that in mind as you plan. Right, Dallas? Have you thought about these kind of things?
Some of them, not all of them.
Okay.
So my goal is to educate you so we can increase that number from 2 businesses that succeed to 5 or 6 businesses that succeed. How many of you ever heard that you need to create a business plan, right? If you're going to go get an SBA loan, you need a business plan, right? The business plan tells you how to grow your business, things like that, but it doesn't include the financial planning part of the business in a lot of cases, unfortunately. So you need a business plan, but have any of you ever been told to create a personal life plan? Okay? You need a personal life plan, just what you want your life to look like, and then you need a financial plan for your business and a financial plan for your life. See how they're a little bit the same, but a little bit different.
My parents are retired, and it's through my mother's smart planning, and she did this kind of stuff. And they're building 7 apartment units that they're able to pay cash for that will bring them an income for the rest of their life.
Learning to pay cash, if you could start buying everything on cash and pay yourself interest instead of paying the bank interest, you know how much further ahead you'd be? We can teach you that. We can teach you that.
One more big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was great.
I have business cards here if you guys want to stop and pick one up. Oh, some over there. Thank you. I love teaching.
Isn't it fun?
It is.